Hello dear listeners, this is second part of She Thought She Could Get Away With It, caught my cheating wife with a famous celebrity and made her pay, so let's start.
Amy, you don't want to be her right now.
I'm sorry, but you are not welcome in our house today. Mr. Butler, I don't know what your son told you, but he made it up. I haven't done anything, whatever you say, Amy, but you are still not welcome here. Tell him I didn't do anything, and if he says I did, it will be trouble for him.
Amy stormed off.
She seemed angry, I said to Dad when he came back into the kitchen.
Be careful, son, I've seen that look.
She is not going down easy.
That woman is like a cat back into a corner.
She is going to lie and scratch her way out.
I hope you can prove what she did.
She looks ready for a fight. Amy gave me the silent treatment when the kids and I came home later in the day.
I slept in the guest room again that night. There was no one pounding on the door that night. The kids left for school while I was still sitting at the kitchen table sipping my coffee.
I decided that it was time to confront Amy. She walked into the kitchen like she didn't have a care in the world.
The kids get off okay?
I nodded as she poured her coffee.
Honey, why are you sleeping in the guest room? Are you feeling all right? You know why?
I don't want to sleep near my cheating wife.
Cheating wife? Mark, what are you talking about?
She asked. So I guess you're going to deny that you had intimacy with a soap star while you were
out of town last week? Mark, I don't know what you're up to.
She turned, looking me in the eyes with an angry look. You accuse me of something you can't prove. I will make you pay dearly.
You know you can't prove anything.
There it is.
You've declared war. I replied. No, I haven't. We can go back to the way things were, but that's up to you. I'm willing to forget your baseless accusations. Sorry, but I can't forget what you did. I replied. I'm going to say it again.
I didn't do anything, and more importantly, you can't prove that I did. You will regret it if you try to say I did something.
Let it go and let's get on with our marriage. I knew a threat when I heard it. I didn't say anything. Just got up and walked to my car as if I was going to work.
Having already called into work sick, I drove down the street waiting for Amy to head to her school where she was an associate principal.
Once she was gone, I went back into the house.
Having Amy's words to heart, I went into the house looking for evidence.
If this was going to be war, I wanted as much ammunition as I could get.
Jenny had mentioned that Amy had gotten Soap Boy's autograph. She couldn't display if she was going to deny her affair ever happened. I figured something like that would be too big of a trophy to get rid of.
She would hide it. It took 2 hours of searching, but I finally found it. Find it I did.
Jenny had an old briefcase in the back of her side of the closet. It was locked, but she always used the same code for her all briefcases. At the bottom, buried under several folders, I found the picture.
It was your standard publicity photo of the soap boy. The signature was tame. To my friend Amy Joshua Morrow.
On the back was another signature.
It was signed. You were great in bed, Joshua.
I scanned the picture before putting it back where it was.
The next stop was the lawyer.
Before leaving, I put a copy of the scan, our prenup, the recording of Amy's friends'
phone call, and my recording of Amy's confession on 2 flash drives.
The lawyer I visited was well known for her ruthless attacks on cheating spouses. Vicky Sampson was known as the bitch in the divorce world. I laid out my story about what Amy did. When I finished telling her the situation and how I wanted it to play out, she just sat
back and smiled. I love this. You are evil. Set the trap and spring it when there is no turning back. You know it is going to be uncomfortable for you when before we show the proof. Everyone is going to think you are lying or crazy.
I know I want her to think she has the upper hand till the very end.
Mrs. Sampson shook my hand.
I will get the paperwork ready and have her served at school.
You need to do a couple of things for me. First, check your credit card bills.
We need to find out the club where she hooked up with her soap star.
Second, get access to her iCloud.
I'm betting there is a selfie of her in Joshua. She is probably smart enough to get anything incriminating off of her phone and download it to some place safe. With some luck, a copy might still be on her cloud. Brushing home, I quickly got on her computer. I didn't even have to try to get into her iCloud. Hidden in her pictures folder were the 3 photos I was looking for. 2 of Amy and Soap Boy and 1 with Amy, Soap Boy, and her friend Jenny. I copied the photos to a flash drive. A quick examination of the photos gave me the other item I needed. The name of the club was on the wall behind them. My lawyer was very pleased with my findings. She told me under no circumstances was I to tell anyone that we had the photos. Her plan was to serve Amy at school on Friday afternoon. That would give me time to get the kids to my parents for the weekend. She also told me that I was not to move out of the house regardless of what Amy said. Or did. On that Friday, I had just dropped the kids off at my parents' house when my phone rang. From Amy. I let it go to voicemail and ignored her texts. I wasn't home for 10 minutes when she stormed in. I was sitting in the living room and turned on the video camera when I heard the garage door rumble. I didn't want to miss any incriminating statements. You son of a blip? What the hell do you think you were doing? I started to answer, but she cut me off. You just couldn't let it go, could you? What is Mark? Is your little male ego damaged? You humiliated me in front of my staff and you're going to pay. You want a divorce? I'll give it to you, but you are going to pay. You know you can't prove the adultery you put in the divorce, and without it, I'm going to take you for everything you have. I hope you're happy. You could have just let it go. Did it bruise your manhood that I had great intimacy with a celebrity? You could have just let me have a good time, but oh no, well heck you. Amy stomped around all while I sat not saying a word. She came back into the living room with fire in her eyes. When are you moving out? I'm not moving out. I'm staying right here. I replied. Oh no, you're not. You want a divorce? You have to move out. She looked at me for a few moments expecting me to get up, but I just sat there smiling. Fine. When this is over, you are going to wish you would have just shut your mouth and let us move on with our lives. The next month was very tense in the house. Amy and I didn't talk. The kids were slowly going to Amy's side. Julie was even questioning if her mother had in fact cheated. She was telling anyone who would listen that I made the whole thing up. Her lawyer filed a response to our petition asking for sanctions for false claims. She even tried to get the court to order me out of the house. That was denied. The court fast-tracked our hearing, with both sides getting limited time to take depositions and interviews of witnesses. My lawyer deposed both Amy and her friend Jenny. They both denied that Amy went off with the soap star and denied that they even met him or went to a club. Preparing for my deposition, my lawyer told me that it was imperative that I tell the truth, but not volunteer any extra information. Her hope was that their lawyer wouldn't ask about the evidence we had gathered of Amy's affair, thinking we had none. Just as Mrs. Sampson predicted, they hammered me on me not witnessing any cheating by my wife, but didn't ask about having any evidence of her cheating. I got the impression that he didn't know that she had actually done what I was accusing her of doing. At the actual court hearing, I'm sure Amy thought things were going great. I testified to Amy's adultery, giving the background of my feelings on adultery and opposition to a hall pass. I was cross-examined on the same issues in the deposition. I wasn't present at her conference and didn't see her do anything with any other men. Amy testified that she didn't do anything, and like me, she was opposed to adultery and would never condone the concept of a hall pass. Amy's lawyer put Jenny on the stand to testify that the encounter with the soap star didn't take place. I looked over to her husband Jack, who was in the courtroom while she testified. He lowered his head to avoid my eyes. Amy started to squirm when my lawyer questioned her about calling Jack and telling him that Amy left with the soap star. Obviously nervous now, she stuck to the story saying it didn't happen. When Jenny sat down, both Amy and her lawyer had smug looks on their faces as the lawyer announced they had no further evidence. Amy's lawyer got up and started to argue that they wanted sanctions for our false claims. The judge started to admonish my lawyer for not proving the claims we put forth. With a smile on her face, Mrs. Sampson stood up. "Excuse me, Judge, we have rebuttal evidence." Amy's lawyer snapped. "I object, we haven't been notified of rebuttal evidence. We have no duty to disclose rebuttal evidence. If their witnesses told the truth, there would be no need for rebuttal evidence." The judge smiled and told Mrs. Sampson to proceed. Mrs. Sampson called her investigator to the stand. "Judge, before we proceed, we are conceding that Mrs. Butler did not have intimacy with Joshua Morrow." I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but Mrs. Sampson gave me a look to shut up and wait. The lawyer put on her investigator, who testified that Joshua Morrow was in Europe the week of Amy's conference. Amy's lawyer shot up. "With this admission that my client didn't commit adultery, we are demanding we stop this farce and have the court issue sanctions on Mr. Becker." Mrs. Sampson, with a big grin on her face: "No, we are not saying she didn't commit adultery. We are just saying it was not with Joshua Morrow." Jenny was recalled to the stand. My lawyer asked her again if she was with Amy at the conference, and if they had met who they thought was Joshua Morrow. She again denied it. Jenny was again asked if she had made a call to her husband, telling him that Amy left with a man, not her husband. Even after being reminded she was under oath, Jenny denied she made the call. I turned to look at her husband, who mouthed, "I'm sorry." I mouthed back, "No. You will be." My lawyer hit play on the recording of Jenny's call. Amy's lawyer shot up, objecting to the recording. "Judge, my client was an invited guest in the witness home and allowed to listen in on the call." Judge told the lawyer to sit down and ask Jenny if that was in fact her voice. She had no choice but to admit that it was. I was starting to feel vindicated when there was finally evidence that I was telling the truth. Amy was recalled to the stand. Amy again denied that when she came home from her trip, she admitted having intimacy with another man. She let out a loud gasp when the video of her graphic description of her intimacy with Joshua Morrow was played. Amy was in tears when the selfies and the signed publicity picture were put into evidence. As Amy walked from the witness stand, the judge interrupted. "Counsel, I'm confused. You said that Mrs. Butler did not have intimacy with Joshua Morrow, but you've just presented evidence that she did." Mrs. Sampson recalled her investigator. "Judge, our evidence proves that Mrs. Butler committed adultery, but just not with who she thought." The investigator put up surveillance photos from the club. Several pictures showed Amy and the man she left the club with. As indicated in the photos, this is not Joshua Morrow. He is a lookalike who likes to pick up married women. He is a known con man who had been diagnosed with several STDs. I just had to look over at Amy at that point. The look of shock on her face was priceless. After a short recess, the judge returned to the bench. He gave a long speech about honesty and faithfulness. The judge ruled that Amy had committed adultery as spelled out in the prenup. He ruled in my favor, upholding the prenup. The judge lectured Amy that even if there hadn't been a prenup, he would have awarded me custody of the kids. On the record, he found Amy to be an unfit mother for her extensive attempts at deception. With tears in her eyes, Amy turned from the counsel table to leave. The judge bellowed from the bench. Mrs. Butler stayed put. "We're not done yet." The judge summoned Jenny to the bench to join Amy. "You both raised your right hand and swore to tell the truth in my courtroom. That oath is sacred in this building." He looked right at Jenny. "I don't care if you have some misguided belief that you were helping your friend. Lying is lying in this courtroom. If this had been a criminal case, you both would be in jail right now. I'm finding that you both committed perjury and I'm holding you both in contempt of court." The judge fined them both the maximum penalty of $5,000. Amy's bad day got worse when she walked out of the courthouse to a local news team putting a camera in her face. I found out later that my lawyer tipped them off. Mrs. Butler, do you have a comment on throwing away your family for a one-night stand with the fake TV star? The reporter's question was the straw that broke Amy's back. Amy let out a blood-curdling scream and then attacked the reporter. It was a blur of hands and feet as Amy struck at the reporter. Amy had her on the ground, pulling her by the hair when a deputy deployed his taser. The cameraman caught the entire episode on video. Amy was on all the national news outlets that night. Sadly, Amy didn't get to see her finest moment. She was locked up in the county jail where she would stay for the next 6 months. No, I didn't have a beautiful blonde lined up to take Amy's place. I was too busy raising 2 kids as a now single parent, and no, I didn't reunite with Amy when she got out of jail even though she tried. My mother felt sorry for her and asked me to give her another chance. She had lost her career and became the subject of ridicule throughout the town. The 3 months of Amy calling and texting me, I agreed to meet with her at her mom's home. Silently I sat and listened to Amy tell me how much she loved and missed me. She missed being part of our family. As a result of her arrest and conviction of assault, she was only allowed limited supervised visits with the kids. Amy said she was so sorry for lying about her hookup as she called it and was so embarrassed that it turned out she was conned by a fake. She finished by pleading with me to take her back, that she would be the best wife ever. I stood up and took a deep breath. Amy, that was an impassioned speech. I believe you mean every word. You apologized for lying. You said you missed our family. You said you love me. I believe you. I really do. It is what you didn't say that is most telling. You've never said you were sorry or even shown any regret for breaking our wedding vows. I think you were sorry that it turned out you didn't have your dream guy. I still don't believe you were sorry that you were cheating on me or even that it was cheating. The answer to your question is no and hell no. I will not take you back now or ever. I want you to stop contacting me, period. If you don't, I will renew the restraining order I was granted when you were arrested. Amy stood up crying. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I enjoyed it. Is that what you wanted to hear? Amy, we're done. Go live your life. It will not be with me. I turned and walked out the door with Amy screaming at me with her mom holding her back. And so we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day. So click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for listening this story both part, and I'll see you in the next one.